Welcome to Abundance. You guessed it, a podcast dedicated to all things surrounding dance. I am Kristen.
And I am Hannah, and we are two best friends who are brought together by this art form.
Please join us in 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Han. How's it going?
It's going. It's our second episode of Abundance.
Yes, we are very excited to be here, and thank you for everyone who has listened so far to episode 1. And if not, it is not too late. I'm excited because hopefully my audio is much better today. So I sounded a little rough in episode 1. I have a Dell computer, and everyone has been pretty much making fun of me for years now, saying that I need to get a Mac. And while I don't have a Mac, I didn't go buy one. I do now have an external microphone. So hopefully I'm sounding a lot better and less like I'm screaming through my computer at you guys.
Yeah, I think from my end it sounds pretty good, but hopefully once we hear this back, it will sound really, really good on our podcast. Let's hope.
Fingers crossed.
All right.
All right. So today we have lots to cover. So we are talking to you now via Zoom, and that's kind of actually the main conversation of today. We're going to talk about what dance and teaching now looks like over Zoom. So I think that we can really both draw from our personal experiences, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, totally. I just feel like everyone right now during this time has probably used Zoom for meetings or for just other things like, like dancing, for example. That's how I have been using Zoom mostly. But I feel like everyone can relate no matter like if you're a dancer or if you're just like a regular human trying to get by during this pandemic. So
Yeah,
shout out
exactly.
to Zoom, literally, because I feel like I've, been a little bit more content if you will, like, because I've been able to see my friends and see people across the country and the world by this platform, and if we didn't have that, it would be even more isolating of a time. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It has come in handy in a lot of ways, but there's definitely the challenges that arise with it as well. And I think, like you said, I mean, there's definitely we have our own set of challenges as dancers using Zoom, but I would say across the board, there's pros and cons for just about everyone.
Totally.
Yeah, so why don't Hannah, what have your experiences been like a little bit, dancing over Zoom with Limon this past semester and just everything else that you've done. And I guess even we can talk a bit too about finishing up at Mercyhurst. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. I think my first experience was probably finishing school over the virtual platform.
Yeah.
um
Although we actually didn't use Zoom, we used Microsoft Teams. So
yeah.
I guess this conversation extends beyond Zoom, but just all virtual platforms.
However, Mercyhurst is now using Zoom as their platform.
Oh, okay, they are. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
but
That's probably for the best.
probably, yeah. Microsoft Teams was a little challenging, I must
It
say.
was.
Even more challenging than Zoom.
Yeah. And I
But
think too for everyone, it was just so new at this point. And I think a lot of people also like, at least I think we were feeling this way. We were not feeling as motivated and we just weren't really happy to be doing what we were doing virtually. So I think that also played a contributing factor because it depends. Like if you're invested in something, then I think it makes it a lot easier. But if you're not really on board with something, it kind of makes it harder to adapt to.
yeah, I totally agree. And it was just so new for us. Like we were ending our senior year and had to go home and do everything virtually. And it was just so different from anything we ever experienced before. And it was sad, very isolating at that point in time for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the experience of dancing at school, I would say felt much different than it does now, for example. Just because there was definitely an emotional aspect to me leaving my friends and all of a sudden taking class in this new way. Like I was in my living room and my dogs were getting in the way and I couldn't see my friends in person anymore or our faculty or just anyone from Mercyhurst anymore. So it was just super upsetting, and we had so much to look forward to, and to have to do it all online was just such a change. And I think at this point now I'm very used to it because I've been doing it for 8 months now, right? Something
Yeah,
like that.
it's
Something.
oddly enough like the quote unquote new normal, and I hope it doesn't stay like this for too much longer, but
I agree.
yeah, I think most people at this point are just they're adjusted.
Yep, totally. Yeah, so I would say now, as Kristen just mentioned, I did the Limon 9-week training program. And oddly enough, I think going into it, I was kind of, weary and unsure of how things were going to go down, just because it is so different to dance on Zoom. We're so
Yeah.
used to being in a studio with other people. So I didn't really know what to expect. And I was pleasantly surprised by the program. I thought they did a really nice job using Zoom in ways that could be beneficial to our training, but at the same time, we did feel isolated. And that's just, I think, something that's just going to happen regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of it, like going to a dance class or, being in rehearsal is being surrounded by everyone, feeling a sense of community. And while you can form a community over Zoom, it is lacking in some ways. And I think too, just part of it, like you read the energy of the room when you're dancing, and that kind of like fuels you. And when you're by yourself, I at least have found like this past semester, I need to be a lot more like self-motivating because, just no one else is there. And sure, people are watching you from over a computer screen, but it feels like there is greater room to slack, you know? At least I feel that way a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I think, as you said, just energy is a big thing. And so when you're just looking at little boxes on a screen, or if you're just listening to music through your computer, it's not the same as being in a live studio with other people for sure.
Yeah, actually the music, that's such a good point I didn't even think of. Like we were so lucky at Mercyhurst. We had live pianists, and I don't know about you, Hannah, but with my program like through NYU, I mean, I would have been at 890 Broadway in the ABT studios, and we would have had live pianists there, amazing people like Michael Cherry and Stephanie Chun, who we've been fortunate to have over Zoom as well. It's been great having a like quote unquote live pianist like over Zoom. That's really cool and they're so talented, but just nothing replaces having that in-person live music.
Yeah, and that's how it was for Lamone too. Like we had live musicians as well, and it was so awesome to hear them playing like even over the computer. But at the same time, it's just there's such a unique and special experience being in person with live musicians and being with your other peers and teachers in the room as well. It's just there's nothing like it. And I don't think Zoom or any online platform frankly will really replace that.
Yeah.
So hopefully, as you said, like we can get back in person sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
I mean, some dancers are fortunate enough and haven't had to really have this whole virtual experience, but I would say there are a large majority who have. Um, and yeah, there's other challenges too, like even just the technology component. I mean, at this point, like we've said, most people have kind of adapted, even, the older generations that aren't as adept with technology, I think have kind of gotten, for the most part, a handle on all of this, but there's things just like poor Wi-Fi that I feel like we all just keep running into.
yeah,
And
that's such a good point.
it's it's so annoying. I mean, you can't really control it, whether it's on your end or whether it's on your teacher, your professor's end, or your other peers, and it just kind of throws the class for a loop at times.
Yeah,
Um,
right, because there's external forces that you literally can't control.
yeah, like it just interrupts the flow at times, and um I mean, I had a recent experience. This wasn't actually a dance experience, but just for one of my classes at NYU, I was having terrible issues with my laptop and I was supposed to be presenting a final project with other group members, and we were the first group to go, and I was the one who was supposed to share the presentation on my computer, and I couldn't get anything to work. And so I was actually at NYU when this happened, and there was an IT number listed on the wall. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to call this number. Maybe they can help me. They were not able to help me. They were like, we don't know what's going on. The whole class was waiting for me. Like they were literally staring at me because they could see my camera, but they couldn't hear me. And I was like texting people on the side. I was typing in the chat, and they waited like a solid 10 minutes for me. And then the IT woman, she was so nice. She literally was like, borrow my laptop, take my laptop for an hour, and then just call me when you're done with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, literally, you saved my butt. This is the last week of classes. And I was like, all I need to do is just present this project. It'll be fine. But it just goes to show like, there's so much out of our control in terms of technology. And it's just frustrating. It really is.
It is frustrating. Yeah, I had a similar experience too. Just the studio I was in, I was really fortunate to be in a studio by myself when I was doing my Limon program, but the Wi-Fi was really bad. And so at the end of the program, I just decided to go home and dance in my kitchen. And while I would much rather be in a studio, I was dancing in my kitchen because that made more sense in terms of me getting the
Right.
information and for people to see me. So yeah, crazy times, I gotta tell you.
Definitely. And I mean, we both were very fortunate too. Like you had access to a studio back home, and I had access to a studio at NYU. But the thing is, like, a lot of people don't have that. And it's so much more challenging dancing at home, like you were starting to say. I mean, I find there's so many additional distractions. I'm home back now, back in Connecticut, and when I teach all my online dance classes, I do them either from my living room or my bedroom, and I'm constantly like shushing my family right before I turn on Zoom, because as the instructor, I keep my camera unmuted the entire, or not my camera, my audio unmuted the whole time, So if people are walking past and talking, that all gets picked up, and I try to remain a kind of like professional nature about it all. But I mean, even like you said, like your dogs, like my cats will come in. I have my cat Ladybug come down, and he sits on my yoga mat sometimes during the middle of like when I'm teaching conditioning classes sometimes, or
Also, yes, she has a boy cat named Ladybug.
yeah, he's the best.
He's pretty
Um,
cool.
but yeah, I think even last year, this is kind of gross, but when we were finishing up Mercyhurst, there was one day we were taking bar with Leslie, and one of my cats just started throwing up next to my ballet bar, and I was literally like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Again,
so
just
many
external
things.
forces that you can't control, literally. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really too like you have to find that focus and kind of get in the zone like you would in the studio. And I mean, I was always one of those people, Hannah knows. I would show up to the studio like 40 minutes before class, usually like the first or second person in there. And I had like my whole ritual of like stretching and warming up I would do. And that really like got me in the zone for class. And for me, like mindset is a big thing. And so that's a lot harder at home to do, or there's just a lot less like accountability. Um, I find too with so like one nice thing about Zoom, so we've been talking about a lot of cons, but one nice thing about Zoom I like is um kind of being able to show up at the last minute. It sounds bad, but like if you have a busy schedule and you're dancing from home, like, you can be doing something else pretty much right up until, and you don't have to add in that extra travel time, to get to and from where you were going to. So I didn't, like, necessarily experience that with my dance classes through NYU because I did go to the studio for that, but I've found it to be very helpful for teaching. So I've, like, booked a lot of classes that I teach, like, pretty close to me doing something else because I can, because all I have to do is kind of, scurry down to my living room, get my things set up, and I'm ready to go. So I do feel like that has been a nice component of this all.
Yeah, I totally agree too. I've also been taking my Isadora Duncan classes, and Lori Bella Love, the director of the company, teaches a lot of my classes during the week, but we also have other instructors too, and they've all been really great and accommodating during this time. But I totally hear you. I will sometimes be doing something and then it's 5 minutes before class and I decide, okay, now I'm going to log on. Whereas before you had to show up way earlier, especially if you're in a situation where it takes you longer to get to the studio or to the place that you're going. You know, you have to account for all that extra time. And now it's just kind of like, all right, I'm going to log on now and here we go.
Yeah. But I do it's like it's nice in some ways, but at the same time, I also do feel like it's a little sad because I do feel like that is part of the whole, like, process of being a dancer. It's like, say you're going to a ballet class, like, you do your bun and you get dressed and then you have your trek over, and, like, for me, I don't know, I would listen to music usually as, like, I was walking to classes or whatever, and then it's part of the whole flow, and now it's just it like like you said, we're just kinda showing up,
Yep,
I mean
it's a new normal because I totally agree with you, pros and cons to this whole situation.
yeah. Now, I have a question. In your experiences in your online classes, did your teachers have a rule or anything, or was it just kind of expected that everyone keep their camera on? I know it might sound weird, but I'm curious about this.
No, that doesn't sound weird. It really depended on the teacher. I took some external classes with other great teachers as well. Solveig Santillano, our wonderful professor at Mercedes University, actually told me to look into a class with Ernesta Corvino, who is actually her teacher from Juilliard, and she's just a well-known teacher and dancer. And so I decided to do that a couple of times in between my programs with Lamone and Duncan. And with her classes, she said, you can turn off your camera, that's fine.
Interest
Or you can leave it on. And if you leave it on, I will give you feedback. But obviously, if you don't, you're just there to take class, and that's fine too. But with my Lamone program and with my Duncan classes, we keep our cameras on. It's almost expected of us.
expected, yeah. Okay.
But I really think it just depends on the person.
I was curious about that. So for us at NYU, it was kind of this like expectation. We were told, you have to keep on your cameras. Essentially, this is kind of part of your grade and your participation, for the exception of if you're telling me, on the side that you're having issues with internet today, or if there's some sort of like external factor going on. Like some people who are working from home maybe had something going on with their kids one day or something where it was kind of a lot to have the camera on, which I think is really great. Like,
Yeah,
I think that people should be understanding because
yeah,
these are unprecedented times.
totally. I totally agree. And you just jogged my memory. When I was in Lamone, our main teacher, Catherine Alter, she said, if you're having Wi-Fi problems or you need to just turn off your camera, that's totally fine. So again,
Yeah,
yeah, when people are super understanding of the situation, it just makes it way less stressful, I think.
yeah. I agree with that. It is tough on the other hand though, because from a teaching perspective, I most of my students have always kept their camera on. I've had to ask a few students to put theirs on at the beginning if it was maybe a new student who didn't really know me and how I like to do things. But I do teach this one class in particular, and I have this one student, she's been with me for months. She's lovely, but she has issues with her internet. And because of that, every single class she has her camera off, because she said that, my picture and audio freezes and she can't really like learn things well when she has her camera on. There's just that extra lag. And so I'm totally like, I'm very understanding of that. Like you said, like, I think we have to be understanding during these times. And that's something that's obviously out of her control. But I find it frustrating as a teacher because she's been with me for months and I feel like I know so little about her. And I don't get to see her and like cheer her on throughout the class. And, occasionally I will kind of chime in and be like, shout out to you. Like, I know you're there. But, and I think that that's important for teachers to do too, because the students should feel acknowledged too, that they are there. And I'm sure she's working just as hard as everyone else, but it's just hard not knowing and feeling like I can't correct. And because of that, I'm not doing as good of a job. But at the same time, what else? Like, can I really be doing? And sometimes I take polls in my class too, try to give the students a little bit of a say. And I'll have to be like, all right, use your virtual thumbs up or down or type in the chat, please, because I can't see, her raising her hand or anything like any of the other students.
Right.
Um,
That's so interesting.
it's just different. It's challenging. Like I said, I think it's almost more of a personal thing. Like I said, feeling like I'm not doing my full job, but yeah, I mean, we can only do what we can really do.
Yeah, and do our best. I guess I have a question for you too.
Yeah.
I haven't done a lot of teaching on Zoom, and you have, but
Mhm.
I've noticed that when I take class from people, a lot of the teachers say that there's like a lag in the audio or like in our screens.
Yes.
Have you noticed that too, like when you're teaching?
Yeah, it's hard, because I've had the same thing when I've taken classes as a student, like my ABT classes. Sometimes our professor thinks that we're like off the music or whatever, or we don't have the counts of the combination, but there is a lag. And yeah, as a teacher, um, I I try to take this into account, and I'm always correcting my students for my ballet classes, telling them, guys, you really have to anticipate what's coming next. And sometimes I'll play the music on the side and just have them listen to the music, and we'll go through a few times. But then at the end of the day, I really do think part of it is just the lag over Zoom, and it's hard to tell. But yeah, I would say consistently it always looks like my students are
Like a
like
minute or two
a
behind.
little tiny smidge behind me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I think you kind of just have to make your students aware of that, um, because they're doing the best they can. For all we know, they might be doing the exact timing. It might be perfect, but it doesn't look like that on our end. And so I think we have to kind of explain the issue at hand so that they're aware of it as well. So that way, when they're training back, like in person again in the studio, um, I don't know, that there just isn't any issues with um timing. Yeah. It's hard. Like, so actually for like my dance conditioning classes I teach, there's some things where it's really rhythm based, and we'll do some exercises that have some like clapping in it, or jumping where it's just very like musical. And I kind of tell them, I'm like, listen on your end and find your own timing. Like, don't watch me, the sequence and I will call it out, but don't be clapping off the music on your end. Like, clap when you hear it in the music. And I think that that's also like a nice way to approach things, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a dance conditioning class. Like, I don't really care or need to see everyone jumping straight up at the same time or whatever. That's not what the class is meant for. It's meant to strengthen and stretch and everything. So I think giving them that extra autonomy to try to hear it out themselves, is good too, instead of just trying to mimic me.
Definitely. Yeah, I've noticed that too in my classes. Like sometimes our teachers will be like, don't watch the screen, like just do what makes sense in your body, what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Because you also don't want to get into a habit with constantly trying to check the screen. I think it completely cuts the like the feeling and um the rhythm to your dancing. When you're constantly like looking at the screen, it's not smooth anymore. It's like choppy, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that does make sense. It definitely does make it more challenging though, which we'll get into this soon. I don't want to get into it too much right this moment because I still feel like there's a couple things we could talk about. Um, but it also plays then an interesting fact into choreography. So like we recently at NYU, one of our last classes, we were taught some rep from Sleeping Beauty, and we were doing it all over Zoom, and we recorded it, and it was really fun to watch the recording. But of course, once again, just we all weren't together, even though there was core work and everything. And it's just kind of one of those things where you need to just be happy where you are in your process and be like, it's okay. Like, this was just kind of for fun and this is how it is. But of course, just being kind of the perfectionist perfectionistic type people we are, I feel like it can be at times a bit unsettling to watch and be like, oh my gosh, everyone is not together. But at the same time, we're all really just doing our best. And a lot of it's just technology coming into play.
Totally. Yeah. In our Limon final like showing that we had on Zoom, our guest choreographer who came in and set a work on us on purpose did it in a way that we weren't all together, and it was super creative. And so I think a lot of people are really taking advantage of this time to make it
Absolutely.
like it's supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
And I
I think if it's intentional, that is perfect. Like, I kind of love that. It really works for what we're dealing with for sure. Yeah, that's
really,
so cool. And I actually got a chance to watch Hannah's final performance. They had recorded it, and so she sent me the link and I got to watch. So that was really cool as well. And I kind of, yeah, I understand what you're saying. It was interesting.
yeah, thanks. It was fun.
Um, so I'm kind of thinking I had one last kind of main thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of just like dancing um over Zoom. I don't know if you have anything else, but I was thinking a lot about accessibility with this, and it's great. It's wonderful in so many ways because now dancers are able to come together from literally all over the world to
Totally.
be in one place dancing together. So whether that be a program like you and I are both doing, or it's just even like master classes, there's been so many opportunities online through so many different organizations. I mean, it first started out at the start of this pandemic, there were so many just free online classes. It was almost overwhelming. It was like every organization was like, "Here, come take this, come do this, blah, blah, blah." And that's awesome.
And actually, you were like, "Hey, you want to take class with me from this person?" And so for a good chunk of time, you and I took class together.
Yeah, no, we did. Hannah and I, we were trying to motivate each other because it was a tough time and it's been hard to stay motivated at times. So we were doing some workout videos together and we took some of the same, yeah, online classes and everything, which was fun. And it kind of makes it more fun too when someone else is in the class as well that you know.
Kind of fun.
And sometimes we would, if it was a class where you weren't like say an Instagram live video or something where you weren't seeing the people in the class, we would like FaceTime on the side. It was fun. Friendship goals. But it's really cool in terms of like I love the idea of people coming together from all over the world. It's amazing. And I think that's opened up to like people who are currently in school or doing different programs. We're able to have additional guest artists and stuff that we wouldn't like programs might not have the funding for to necessarily fly in and like house and stuff for a residency. I mean, I had remind me of his name, Hannah, but I had um the man, remember from your program,
Oh,
come.
Dante Paleo, the artistic director.
Yes, Dante. Yeah, he came and spoke at during one of my classes at NYU. It was so cool. I texted Hannah and I was like, "Hey, like I just had like Dante from your Limon program, blah blah blah." So it's cool to have that kind of connection and just even through my professional development class, they brought in a lot of different people from all over who wouldn't necessarily be able to just drop what they're doing, their normal day-to-day jobs and come to the city. And I think that's across the board with everyone, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I've developed friendships from like with people from across the world, as you were kind of just saying too, like even students. If you're from Brazil and you want to take a dance program or do something in New York City, that's not necessarily accessible always. You know, it costs a lot
Yeah.
of money and it's a lot of time to travel, and there's so many factors that play into it. But this gives us a way to get involved with the organization that you want to be with in right from your home.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, I mean, the dance world is kind of unique. I feel like where one way or another, we do have these kind of experiences where we are meeting people from all over the country and the world because dancers are willing to travel for their training and for their dreams. Like that is a thing. I mean, I feel like even just I got to travel all around the country as like a younger dancer doing summer programs and stuff, and that was amazing. Um and Yeah, so I feel like, I mean, some people have done way more travel than I have done in terms of for dance, but people are willing to do that anyways, but yet then it opens up this extra window for those who maybe it would have been more of a financial burden, or just like you said, I mean, it's one thing to pick up your life and, like, move across the world for, say, a year, and then that experience is done with, and then, okay, where are you going to next? Versus right now in these strange times, someone from Brazil, say, can decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to do this 2 semester long training program that technically takes place in the States. And then we'll see what's going to happen from there, right? You know, they're not committed to this huge life changing move and then not knowing what comes next, but they can just decide in this time right now, okay, I'm going to do this. And then we'll just see from there, which is kinda cool and unique.
Super cool. Yeah. And I have heard from people across the country and across the world who have really enjoyed the aspect of being together in this community, even though it is virtual, it's still super special, which I think is really unique and awesome about this really unprecedented time.
Yeah. But on the other hand, gotta be the devil's advocate here, um, it's also not accessible though in terms of, like, the technology component, because some people, um some people can't afford to have, you know, their own laptop, or especially this really comes into play, I think, with young children. So, a lot of young children, I mean, more more and more nowadays have phones, and they do have their, you know, their iPads, their tablets or whatever. But very, very young children, I have some hope in the world, don't have a ton of technology. And that puts additional pressure on families because, you know, if you have everyone at home, you have, say, mom or dad working from home, they're using their computers, and then their kids need something for their online schooling or for their dance Zoom classes. And so they can't necessarily just borrow mom or dad's or their brother or sister's computer because everyone at this point is really needing their own. And people are doing things at the same time. So that's definitely an issue. We are trying through NYU. So in the spring, through one of my classes, we're going to be teaching classes to students in New York City public schools. So that's going to be a really interesting, cool experience because we will be doing it all virtually. Normally, we'd be going into the schools. However, with this additional component of Zoom, we decided to extend and we're trying to teach some classes to students in Uganda as well with the same material we're using for the New York City public schools. So, um, the head of my department, she has a wonderful partnership with people in Uganda. And if things were normal right now, I would actually be leaving to go to Uganda in about a week or so, which would have been really amazing for a couple week long program there. But to kind of make up for some of these losses, she's trying to put together, yeah, that we teach these classes. But the difficulty is that these students, they don't have access to this technology in Uganda. And so part of what we're doing is she's trying to get funding to actually be able to rent computers and like TV monitors and stuff so that we can teach them. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, this is not an issue like we necessarily deal with on the daily, but it definitely does pose problems for people um, who are trying to do this all virtually right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know from my experiences, the girl I babysit for is in third grade. And luckily, our school district has provided all the kids with laptops so they can do their schooling from home.
That's great.
That's really cool. But
Yeah.
I totally hear you. And I even think college students have trouble too with maybe not having a laptop. And then it poses the problem like if they can't get into the school library or they don't have access because they're working from home, how do they get their work done too? And I think
Right.
that's the same for literally all kinds of students across the country that
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it's definitely a general kind of issue. And I hear you on that because I mean, even with so I have partial access to NYU and I can go to the library if I reserve a space, but they've removed all general access to computers and printers there. So you can no longer just go to the library and print a document or go to a library and use another computer. And for someone who, you know this, and some people who are listening might know this as well. I have had a lot of laptop issues, and so starting this semester, I was panicking, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I swear, if anything happens to my laptop, like I don't know what I'm gonna do because everything is online. I can't even go to a library and use a computer there. I was like freaking out, but thankfully have made it through the semester.
Made it, but I was totally one of those people that told you to get a Mac and you never listened to me. But it's fine. You used my Mac at school when you needed it. And you
Yeah.
made it this far. So yay.
Yay, I suppose. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, I think like we really covered a lot. There's pros and there's cons. And I think even with when we do return to things in person again, I think that this some of this technology is still going to be utilized. What do you think?
Which is really awesome.
I think yeah, I think a hybrid type experience at times is okay. Like I think that that's an interesting thought. Of even I mean, we I guess Mercyhurst was a little ahead of their times when we had remember that audition where they like zoomed or skyped in that one guest artist for that residency
Oh, that's
for the audition, and that was nuts. That was absolute like chaos in the moment, but I mean, in that kind of situation, it can work.
yeah.
Yeah. And maybe even like I don't know if this is a little far-fetched, but maybe even say like in children's programs at schools, maybe students who aren't feeling well and are told, stay home from dance, don't come, like you don't want to get other people sick. And I'm not talking about in terms of like COVID-19, but I'm just talking about in general of like they have, I don't know, a cold or something and they're just told not to come in. Well, maybe, and I don't know because it's challenging to keep things online all the time, but maybe they can like zoom into their class and still participate if they're feeling up to it, but then not have the additional, like exposure to the other students. I don't know. It's a little out there, I feel like. But just a thought, you
Yeah.
know.
I think that this is just going to be something we take one day at a time, and it will be really interesting to see what ends up happening once things do calm down and we can be in person again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I just totally thought of something.
What is
Zoom recordings. That is such an interesting concept to me. Zoom
it?
recording. Yes, just like we're doing right now. Did you guys for the Limon program, did you guys have all your sessions recorded?
And for Duncan, all of my classes are
Yeah, same with us. And to me, this is like there's so much. This is such a weighted thing. Like, so by having the recordings, like we can go back and access them, which is such a unique thing because what we do as dancers is in the moment, like almost always, And I think as an artist, in comparison to other like mediums of art, it can be challenging for dancers sometimes because we don't walk away with like, oh, here is our painting. Here is my sculpture. Here is my soundtrack on Spotify. Like we don't walk away with these like physical things that we can be like, this is my work. What we do is it's our body and it's in the moment.
right. Yeah.
And, like the closest thing we ever get to that is a recording, which obviously there's the whole arguable, like it's not the same, like watching a dancer as a recording, you don't get that like in person kind of full immersive experience. But at the same time, it's still something. And so like now having daily classes recorded, to me, that's like almost mind-boggling. Because you can also go back if you're one of these people. I did not have time to do this at all this semester. But if you're one of those people, you can go back and you can watch yourself and you can nitpick yourself and you can self-correct. So it opens that door of additional like self-correcting and working on yourself and your technique, or going back and listening to the things your teacher said and taking additional notes, it I feel like it opens up so much. I don't know.
Yeah, I just started thinking about too, just like how dance is now projected on the media too. Like
Mhm.
that's a whole nother topic I feel like that we can get into another time. But I
Yeah,
think films and like different things like that I know are being used even more during this time. Like
yeah,
we have a friend who graduated from Mercyhurst who's a little older than us, and he's been putting out all these cool dance films during this time. And I think that's really awesome. So
yeah,
it's
totally.
interesting how dance is evolving on,
Yeah.
during this time, and just even even since technology has evolved over the years, I think we've seen a lot more dance and in the arts in general online, which is
Definitely.
yeah.
I think we were probably headed in this direction anyways, but just this whole year has kind of like expedited that. It's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, okay, like we're there now." Like
have to go there.
yeah, we have to. So, here we are.
Totally.
But yeah, so I don't know, just the whole idea of like the Zoom recordings and all of that is kind of like mind-boggling to me. But
It is.
at the same time, I will admit from like a teaching perspective, it does make me a little, like, additionally self-conscious, and I don't totally love it. Because, just like students, teachers have off days too, and just knowing that that's there in existence, like, forever sometimes is a little bit daunting. I mean, it definitely is good from a safety standpoint. I mean, it's an extra, like, liability kinda or, like, you have this physical proof of, say, something ever did happen in the classroom, between, like, a teacher and a student, like, that's recorded, so there's that physical proof, for sure, which I think is good in some ways, for sure, but at the same time, just from, like, a kind of being in the moment with your students, kind of thing, I don't know. I do feel a little additional pressure as a but maybe once again, maybe that's just a me thing. I don't know.
I feel like you're not alone in that. I just thought of something else too, Kristen. When you started talking about like the physicality of things, this is totally different. But when you're dancing in your house and you're not in a studio, you can easily get injured. And that
Oh,
has that has happened to me so many times. Like I've gotten small injuries and I've also had like kind of big ones. I had to go get an x-ray because I thought maybe my ankle was broken or something happened to my foot because I banged my foot into our kitchen counter. And I'm sure I'm not
I hate to laugh, like, I know that you're okay, which is, like, the good part of it all now, like,
like, but it totally happens during this time, and it's just another factor. It's like we can't
oh,
control the floor we're jumping on, or
yes,
or the
that's like a big one. Like,
yeah.
not only, like you said, just the casual, like, "Oh, I banged into my, furniture," or like for me when I'm trying to move around in some of my classes in my apartment back in New York City, it's tight quarters and sometimes I'm like hitting my arm into the wall where obviously it's like no biggie, like it's just more of annoying,
Right.
but
But you
um
literally just don't always have the space that you
yeah,
would in a studio, and it just
yeah.
makes that more challenging.
But flooring is such a big thing because, I mean, I am majorly impressed by some of the setups these kids have nowadays. Like, some of the kids I'm seeing online, I'm like, they have this
Or
gorgeous
studio.
big room with a whole thing of Marley and they have their ballet bar. I'm like, wow, like that's nice. Some of them have mirrors. I'm like, this is incredible. I mean, I'm lucky. I do have a portable ballet bar, which is nice. I have it when I'm in the city, but I also brought it home for the winter break. And I did recently purchase a couple months ago. I got a Harlequin dance floor, like patch of Marley. It's like a little mat, but it's by no means, it does not cover my whole floor. Like it's my own little personal bubble for me doing some like releves and échappés on points and a couple pirouettes, like, some pretty contained things, but no, I'm not doing a grand allegro across it. And even if you have, these resources and you have Marley, most students don't have sprung floors in their house, like unless they legitimately have created kind of a home studio, which I mean, some people do have, but that poses the issue of more serious injuries, like you were saying, because that's not only now like a little nick or something, or but now it's like, well, issues of things like shin splints or tendonitis or like more things that can be more serious and actually put a dancer out for longer.
Right, and I think that also poses the question, how do we stay in shape during this time
Yes.
too?
Yeah.
It's like you have to do extra things to help you stay in the shape that you want in order to get back into the studio someday. I know people are having to do external exercises or just different activities in order to help them kind of stay in some sort of shape because this is just so strange. Like we're so used to being in a space where we can move and travel and just do what we're used to doing as dancers, but now we're having to do maybe more Pilates or walking outside, or you know we're taking online classes that will allow us to stay in some sort of shape. And again, I think that's awesome that we have the accessibility to those classes, but again, it's like, are we going to be at a place where we can get right back to it again once we are able to be in a studio?
Yeah, totally. And that's a tough thing too, like as a teacher to a student, but also just as a student trying to be intelligent and do what's right is, I think it's good for people to be understanding. So, like for teachers to tell students, it's okay, like if you don't have a great space, like maybe mark the jumps, or even, if someone's on hardwood floor and there's a lot of turns, like be careful and be mindful of your space. And I think it's important for students to be smart and make these decisions themselves too, whether their teacher tells them to or not. But at the same time, like you said, it's hard because, okay, so maybe someone's marking jumps all the time in their house because they don't think it's safe for them to jump, but at the same time, if you haven't jumped since March, like, you're kind of in trouble, and I don't mean that in a bad way, and I mean, I feel like to some extent, I'm saying that about myself, like, "Kristen, you're in a little bit of trouble because I haven't been doing a lot of things that I wish I could be doing." And I feel the difference in my body. I feel honestly more achy and in pain than I ever used to be because my body is in this weird, like, in between, like, you're still dancing, you're still being physically active, but you're not at your peak. And like, you're kind of struggling a little bit. It's like this kind of like my body is telling me, like, what is going on? Like, we're confused.
Yeah, totally.
It's just tough. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that could be its whole own other thing because yeah, I'm definitely feeling a lot of that right now. But anywho,
I just think there's fatigue that comes along with that, like mentally and physically. It's like when you're stuck in your house and you're not in the studio or you're not in the places that you're used to being, and it's like, okay, here we go again. Now I have
yep.
to try jumping on a floor that might not be safe, or I have to, just do my best. And you just want to break away from that, but you literally can't because we're in isolation.
Yeah. Oh man. Whew. All right. That's a lot. Do we want to get into talking a little bit more about now then like the idea of performances over Zoom or choreography? I know we kind of touched upon that a little bit with you like mentioning the choreographer you had with your Limon program, but I feel like we could kind of dive into this a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good idea. I know from my personal standpoint, I've seen a lot of professional companies that have advertised on social media their different performances that they're either showing from like the past or
Mhm.
or things that they're doing now. And I think that's really cool for advertising, but also just for people to know and support the arts, because right now
Definitely.
it's struggling, and it's so important for people to stay involved in what the companies are doing, and art in general is just
Yeah.
so important. So I really have appreciated all of the dance that I have seen online. And I think,
I have as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say that I as well, I feel like it's really come in handy during these times. It's been really good to have, but it is also challenging because you have some organizations that are handing things out for for free. So which is really great. But then we have other organizations where, they're charging 25, 30, maybe more money to get a digital version of watching a performance. So there's all kinds of things that are being offered, and it's tough because these arts organizations, they need the money right now. Like, they're suffering so much, and so I completely understand that. Um and we really, like, we can't be handed everything for free. Like, that's not fair, and that's not fair for the artists, because in a sense too, it almost, like, free stuff occasionally is great, but if your artwork is always being given out for free, then it kind of loses its value in to some extent too, because you're saying, well, like, this is your career. Like, you're a professional dancer, but,
Really, like,
like, we're gonna hand it out to everyone.
yeah,
Yeah, like, in a way, I really don't think that that's fair.
like we're still paying for our doctor's appointments and different things like that. So that's their career, and dance is there is the artist's career as well. And I totally hear you. It's like you shouldn't always be getting everything for free because this is their livelihood. Like this is what they're doing to make money.
But
So
it is hard because a lot of families are suffering a lot more right now financially, and so if something has to go, like, I understand, you're likely going to go to your doctor's visit over, watching a digital performance. I do understand that, and
yeah, so many pros and
it's
cons to this.
yeah, it's this tough situation because I even find myself, of course, as an artist, I always wanna support other artists, and I'm sure you can relate, but
Mhm.
I honestly find it difficult right now to validate paying for a virtual performance. I have been seeking out the free ones, and, like, I always, like I said, I always love to help other artists, but at the same time, as someone who's in a tough position, has just graduated undergrad, is now taking on graduate school, has a lot of loans, and is trying to, like, live and survive in New York City, it's not, and, knowing too that my future is hopefully going to just continue to be dance, and that isn't, quite frankly, the most high paying position by any means. And so it's tough for me to validate right now. Like, okay, I'm gonna go spend $30 to watch a digital performance. Whereas I can validate that seeing something in person, because it's a whole other experience.
Yeah, I agree. I hope though that we can get like big organizations or like companies or people who frankly are just well off to donate to the arts because
Yeah,
yeah, like yes,
that's crucial.
yeah, us as college students, yeah, maybe that doesn't make sense for us to be spending $30 on something that's virtual. But if you have the money, please donate and
Absolutely.
the arts because we're really suffering. And it's just so crucial for our world to be what it is. You know, without the arts, it would be far less colorful, figuratively and quite literally. So I'm just saying.
Oh, yes, please donate. We need big donors, we need grants, we need it all. Just but yeah, your college students maybe aren't, as much as we want to be the greatest supporters we can, we're not always the one to be able to do that. I guess that's what I was getting at there,
Yeah, totally. I
for
think,
sure.
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so getting into virtual performances, I think it's almost impossible not to talk about Nutcracker right now, and that what that looks like, because 'tis the season, it is Nutcracker season. I am very nostalgic this year, to say the least, because every single year since I was 6 years old, I had some form of involvement with the Nutcracker. And this is kind of the first year. I guess I had a very, very small involvement this year, but I don't know. I just feel further disconnected from it, more
Yeah,
so than any other year.
definitely.
And
And the major ballet companies too are so used to performing this well-known
yeah,
show, and it's probably been many, many years, since they've had to completely not put it on. And it's such a holiday
mhm,
tradition that I feel like so many people do and know about, so
yeah,
it's definitely
definitely.
weird to say the least.
Yeah, I know companies are struggling so much just from the lack of Nutcracker. For so many of these major companies, Nutcracker and summer intensives are pretty much the largest forms of revenue, which is kind of crazy to think about. But in order to do so many other smaller, less known works, which I know as artists we crave. Like, of course, we love the classics, but we also crave new works and kind of some of the less known things. But those can't honestly be done without the funding of things like Nutcracker and the ticket revenue. So that this is challenging, but I've been doing my research a little bit, and I've looked into what some companies around the country are doing in terms of Nutcracker this year. So we kind of have our different. We have a few places that are doing in-person performances with just smaller audiences,
Yeah, for
and wow,
Cleveland
what a
Ballet.
thought that is.
Yeah,
What?
Cleveland Ballet, where Stacy is. She's
Yeah.
doing small Nutcracker performances, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even talking like small, short, like I'm talking some companies are still doing like full-fledged performances like in a major theater in their main theater that they perform in, but just with limited audience members. So like Orlando Ballet, for example, they just had I believe just this past weekend they had their performances. And they seem to have gone by successfully. They actually brought in artists, newly promoted, yay, Principal Aaron Bell from ABT. Love him, have been following him ever since he was itty bitty, featured in the documentary First Position. Big fan. So
Check it
yeah, he
in First Position. It's good film.
yes. But he guested and was the Sugar Plum Cavalier with an apprentice from ABT in Orlando Ballet's Nutcracker, which I also think is interesting because, so A, they were able to get by doing performances in their main theater, but then they also flew in guest artists during this time. It's a very interesting concept to me that I don't think many companies have gotten to really do. And in addition to that, so I read an article from Point Magazine that also San Antonio Ballet, Oklahoma City Ballet, and Alabama Ballet all got to do similar type things, like in person in their main theater, just with limited capacity, which is pretty incredible, honestly. Can't really imagine it, but yeah, we have. I would say like of our friends from Mercyhurst, those that are dancing, you know, whether it's as a trainee or an apprentice in companies around the country, they're all kind of having different experiences this year with Nutcracker as well. Because yeah, I know like our friend Sarah down in Alabama, she just recently had her Nutcracker performances as well, which is awesome. Like I'm so happy for everyone who's getting to perform. It's just to me, it's such a foreign concept right now that I struggle to kind of grapple with it. But I'm of course very happy for them.
Yeah.
But then we all
Oh no.
sorry.
We do that sometimes. No, I was just gonna say I really love how companies are also allowing their dancers to have like masks as part of what am I trying to say? As part of the costume. It
Yes.
looks so good actually, and
Yeah,
it's just so clever. And
it really works for some of them.
yeah, and a safe way to approach performing.
Yeah, and especially too, like if you have the ability to and you have like the wardrobe people like doing things like either matching the masks to the costumes or yeah, it can work, folks. It can work.
Make room for change.
But then we also have things like recording old performances, or live streaming and recording in the studio, on stage, outside. So kind of all of these different versions. We have smaller casts, like choreography rearranged to allow for social distancing. We have had, for some schools, have done Zoom performances, so where the kids rehearse over Zoom and then they actually record over Zoom as well, or even special like kind of cinematic videos and projects. We're kind of seeing it all right now, which
Yeah,
is very interesting. Um,
or even
yeah. So to continue my Kotzbahn. Are you talking about?
yeah. I know Kotzbun has had a lot of companies.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, folks. Little lag. Talking about technology, I'm getting a little lag, hence the
Yeah,
the confusion. And
no, same on my end too. Oh boy. internet.
Let's hope we survive to the end.
Seriously, but yeah, I was just going to say I know Kotzbahn has held a lot of professional companies um for a couple weeks at a time for their residency.
Yeah.
And the Limon Dance Company, for example, they were there for their, it's called the bubble residency, where they don't wear
Yeah,
masks,
I saw that.
socially distant, and yet they were still making work and dancing together and putting on a performance that they actually did this past Saturday. And they broadcasted that online. And that was just incredible to see that it's still happening. Performing is still happening, even though they didn't necessarily have a live audience, but they did have a virtual one. And I just think that's
Right.
neat too.
Yeah, I absolutely love what's happening at Kotzbahn. I have been following that as well. For anyone who has not ever been to Kotzbahn, it is the most like incredible place ever. I did a 3-week summer program there and have also just gone like for auditions there. The campus is just completely like stunning and it's perfect for this kind of thing. They have the lodging there, they have their studios are so spacious. It's kind of just in this remote location in kind of bordering upstate New York and it's just perfect for this kind of thing. So I really really hope that they can continue doing stuff like that at Kotzbahn for sure. Yeah, but so I decided that of course wanting to get my Nutcracker fixed, but also to try to kind of see what some of the options have been like. I have tried to watch a couple of these different versions of Nutcracker that do exist. So actually this past Friday I was online just trying to do a workout video. Trying to stay in shape over here. And I stumbled across the St. Louis Ballet. They were premiering their Nutcracker. So they did Act 1 was the recording from last year, and then Act 2 was a modified version made for the circumstances right now. So they had less dancers on stage and whatever else other safety precautions they took. And this was free. It was on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's still up there now and can be viewed. So that was kind of interesting. Like it was, like I said, it was one of those things like I literally just stumbled across it and it was free. So I was like, hey, I'm going to click on this. And I didn't watch the whole thing because I was trying to stay motivated and get through to actually working out like I had set out to do. But I did watch a little bit and it was interesting. I have to say one of my favorites, and I think Hannah, you probably have seen this, the Isabella Boylston and James Whiteside video highlight from Ramonski's The Nutcracker.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Uh, literally, probably my favorite thing about this whole holiday season right now. Like uh, I mean, the two of them are just my absolute favorites.
and
I
the fact
love
that
them.
they're
I know you do too,
yeah,
Hannah.
yeah, I know. And the fact that they're like close friends, they're like best friends, and they're dancing this beautiful, stunning duet, both principals of American Ballet Theater. It's just insane.
Yeah, if you have not witnessed this, you must. It's a must see. You can see it on ABT's YouTube channel. It was filmed early November at the New York City's Highline Hotel, and it's just stunning. It's about a 10-minute long video or so. Must watch. And just kind of fun little tangent story about that. So my mom actually, she watched the video. She saw Jennifer Gardner shared it on Facebook, and my mom, for some whatever reason, decided to comment on it and said like, "Oh, this is so lovely. Like, thank you for sharing, Jennifer." And Prince Harry loved her comment. Just saying, like the real Prince Harry. Not really sure why, but
Casual.
apparently he's a ballet supporter too. So we love that.
I love that. That's so fun.
So random. When my mom told me, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, and
But
then you screenshot it and sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's so great."
yeah. And then I'm curious, Hannah, what your like home studio is doing, but the studio that I grew up dancing at here in Connecticut ended up filming their version of the Nutcracker on stage this year, and then they're having people pay to get access to it, like we mentioned some companies are doing. Do you know what your home studio has opted to do?
Unfortunately, we aren't really doing any kind of holiday performance that I know of. Um,
Okay.
a lot of times, like the local studios in Syracuse, will get the opportunity to perform with a live orchestra
Mhm.
downtown, and that will like rotate between each studio depending on the year. So that also happens a lot. And then the Nutcracker does happen. But as far as I know, for my studios that I attended growing up, there's not really anything happening, which is upsetting because it is such a great holiday tradition for people across the country
Yeah.
and the world to see the Nutcracker and to see holiday performances. But I know that hopefully things will resume next year. And
Mhm.
I know personally, I am totally looking for nutcrackers and different things to watch. So I'm hoping that other people will too in the area, in the Syracuse area. They'll find things online. But yeah,
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's just not feasible for some people right now, and that is understandable. I hear you on that. It's unfortunate, but it is how it is. But another one I stumbled across, kind of a different approach to this all, is the Washington Ballet School and Company. So I actually, during one of my last NYU classes this year, we had Monica Stevenson. She's an alumni of NYU and the head of the Southeast campus for the Washington Ballet School. And she was telling us a little bit about what her students have been doing. So they actually have been rehearsing over Zoom all fall, and they ended up all buying their own costumes. So they kind of sent out to the parents an inexpensive option of something to buy on Amazon or some other sort of similar website, and they ordered their costumes, and students kind of had their own little home setup. Some of them had like a sheet behind for a nice like clear clean background, and they all just did their choreography for things like potionelles and all kind of the student type roles for a company production like that, which
that's so
is
cool.
pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the same, but she said, we were asking her some questions about her experience with this, and she said the kids were super excited to do it. And I think that that's really what matters, because I think especially as a young kid, I mean, for me growing up, fall and like winter and Christmas time was like Nutcracker. To me, that's what it was, and that's what like made the holiday season. And so I know as a kid, especially missing out on that opportunity would be pretty heartbreaking to me. So I think it's great that like kids are able to make the most of this and still have a lot of fun, just being in their costume at home and dancing. I think that that's great.
Yeah, I've also heard from others too that kids are just having a grand old time, which makes me so happy because again,
Yeah.
in person and experiencing the Nutcracker and the holiday season is just so special when you're in person performing. But the fact that people are embracing the at home dancing on Zoom, like it's just so great and heartwarming, honestly, during this time.
Yeah. And then I reached out to my friend Gianna, who I grew up dancing with, and she's actually dancing with the Washington Ballet, and she told me a little bit about what the company is offering. I looked into this a little bit, but I was a little bit confused, quite honestly. But they're offering some virtual options through Marquee TV. This is kind of an interactive type experience, and it is something that you have to pay for.
Yeah,
But they're offering things like it's like this like Clara kind of like adventure type
right.
thing where some company members have recorded things like in the studio and
Yeah, I think New York City Ballet is doing
yeah.
something similar.
Yeah, yeah, it looks like that's a kind of a popular option
Definitely.
for a
Yeah.
lot of companies. I don't blame them. I mean, I'm not sure if you were aware of this, but back over the summer, I know Washington Ballet had an incident where they held a gala. I believe it was a gala type performance. It was one of their biggest fundraisers that they have every year. So they decided to still do something, and they only had a few dancers in the studio. They were practicing social distancing. Everyone was wearing masks except for when someone was like behind the camera being interviewed like solely, and yet they ended up having multiple cases right after the fundraiser, including the artistic director, the beloved Julie Kent. So she was sick for a while. And I remember seeing a post from her on social media about how just she was very disappointed in herself and like felt like she put her company at risk just to like, I mean, she of course had good intentions and thought she was doing the right thing because of course, if you're social distancing and you're wearing your masks, you think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and that all should be fine, but things unfortunately still do happen. And so I think that it kind of makes sense what the Washington Ballet has opted to do this year because I think after that kind of incident that they have probably erred on a lot of like the side of caution for most things to avoid another scenario like that.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and it's important to keep everyone safe. So I'm glad that they decided to do that. Seems like,
Yeah,
and
yeah. And then kind of the last one I kind of wanted to bring up and highlight was the Boston Ballet School. They did or what am I saying? The Boston Ballet School, just the Boston Ballet, the company, not the school. They did a 1 hour special that's free online through January 2nd. So check it out if you're interested. I watched it this past weekend with my family, and it's all from last year's Nutcracker. I found it interesting because I mean, I'm kind of in this unique location living in Connecticut. I'm near a lot of these major companies. I'm not too far from Boston Ballet. I'm not too far from New York City Ballet and ABT. And so I've tried over the years to see a bunch of performances. Although the Boston Ballet Nutcracker has been on my list for years and I have not made it there yet. So my family was like, well, here's your teaser. You're getting to see it. So they don't show the full ballet and they kind of have some like little interview, like little clips inserted throughout, but they show a good majority. Like they show some of the party scene, they show the full snow scene, some of the divertissements, and Sugar Plum, of course. So that was an enjoyable one. I liked that, and for kids too, maybe who can't, it's kind of difficult to sit through the full length. Kind of having that condensed version is nice as well.
yeah, definitely. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I've been trying to take advantage of these. I mean, weird year, so and like I said, I'm all about free things, so I've been trying to take up all the free opportunities for sure. I already told my family we are scheduled to watch the Ballet West Nutcracker on Christmas Eve, so we've got a few more days until another Nutcracker showing, and um they've all agreed to it, whether all are pleased by it or not. But yeah,
Such a
I'm excited to
You're such
continue.
a ballet guru. I love it.
I really am. Honestly, I wish that a job existed where I could like drop everything I was doing right around like Nutcracker season and I could like tour the world and someone could just pay me to like fly all over the place and pay for my tickets to go see Nutcrackers like all over the country and the world and just like critique them and compare them. I would thrive off of that. Like that would be the dream. I love Nutcracker season. Obviously a total ballet geek too. Uh,
Amazing, though. Amazing. Good to be passionate, Frack. Oh yeah, I call her Frack sometimes. Her last name is Frackless, and yeah, I call her Frack. So that's one of my nicknames for Kristen.
yeah, but lots going on. I mean, I think all of these opportunities are only really available kind of through the new year. So,
Check it
when you're
out.
when you're listening to us, you still have a few more days until a lot of these opportunities will be going away. So really do check them out, or at least like pick one or two.
Definitely.
Preferably medium.
Yes.
All right, so that was a lot of talk on Zoom on our virtual world of dance right now and kind of the land of Zoom as we go through Nutcracker season in this unprecedented times. But we're super excited. Next week, we're going to be bringing to you some talk about dance in films, shows, and documentaries, kind of inspired by the recent releases of Tiny Pretty Things on Netflix and On Point on Disney Plus. So if you haven't seen any of those, maybe start watching because there'll probably be some spoilers for sure in the next episode, and we'll be touching on all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Thank you so much for listening. We're so appreciative of the support that we got from our first episode. So if you made it this long, cheers to you, and thanks so much.
Yeah, exactly. And happy holidays to everyone.
Yes, happy holidays.
All right. Bye. Talk to you
Bye.
soon.
Thanks for tuning into Abundance. We appreciate your support. We hope to have PK'd your interest. Feel free to contact us at abundancepodcast5678@gmail.com and give us feedback on what you'd like to hear. That is abundance without parentheses. Go dance yourself silly. Bye for now.
A special thank you to Richard D. Fiore for our lovely podcast tune and my wonderful boyfriend, Matt Mellish, for our cover art.